crews had struggled to reach the accident scene because severe flooding blocked several roads. During those chaotic hours, countless volunteers, medical workers, and bystanders rushed to help before official rescue teams fully secured the area. Among them was an elderly nurse named Margaret Ellis, a recently retired pediatric nurse who happened to be driving home after visiting her sister. She was one of the first people to arrive. Margaret later confided to a close friend, whose testimony surfaced years after her passing, that she had discovered a crying infant several hundred yards from the wreckage, wrapped tightly inside a soaked blanket beneath broken branches. Believing the child's parents had almost certainly died in the devastating collision, and unable to immediately locate emergency personnel amid the confusion, she carried the baby to safety. The storm worsened, roads closed completely, and communication systems failed throughout parts of the city. By the time Margaret reached a temporary emergency shelter, official reports incorrectly listed the infant among those presumed lost. Convinced that no surviving relatives remained, and after repeated attempts to identify the child led nowhere because of administrative failures during the disaster response, Margaret eventually became the girl's legal guardian under a new identity. She never acted out of cruelty or selfishness. She believed she was protecting an orphan child. But with every passing year, correcting the mistake became more complicated until the truth disappeared beneath changing records, lost paperwork, and fading memories. The young woman lowered her head as tears rolled down her cheeks. Suddenly, memories of the woman who had raised her felt different. Margaret had always loved her deeply. She had protected her, cared for her, and sacrificed everything she had to provide a safe home. She had never spoken with hatred about the past. Instead, she always carried quiet sadness whenever questions about family were asked. Now those moments finally made sense. Margaret hadn't been hiding the truth out of malice. She had been carrying the crushing weight of a decision made during unimaginable chaos, one she likely spent the rest of her life wondering whether she should have handled differently. After Margaret passed away, the fragile trail connecting the young woman to her true identity disappeared completely. She entered foster care carrying only the silver locket, the old blanket, and a story no one fully understood. The truth had simply been buried beneath the passage of time. Neither Evelyn nor the young woman wanted to rely solely on photographs, memories, or old documents. They both understood that emotions could cloud judgment, and after everything they had endured, neither wanted to build hope on uncertainty alone. There was only one way to remove every remaining doubt. Evelyn gently reached across the table once more. "Let's find the truth together," she said softly. The young woman looked into her eyes for a long moment before giving a slow, uncertain nod. The following morning, they visited an accredited laboratory and agreed to a DNA test that would answer the question neither of them could escape. Then came the hardest part. Waiting. The hours stretched into days, and every phone call made their hearts race. Every passing moment carried the weight of 19 unanswered years. Neither of them knew whether their lives were about to be transformed forever or whether they were preparing for another heartbreaking disappointment. Finally, several anxious days later, the laboratory contacted them. The results had arrived. The call came just before noon. For a brief moment, neither Evelyn nor the young woman could bring themselves to answer the phone. 19 years of questions rested behind a single conversation, and both understood that whatever they were about to hear would change their lives forever. Hope had carried them this far, but hope had disappointed Evelyn too many times before. She had learned that even the strongest faith could be shaken by heartbreaking news. The young woman sat silently beside her, staring at the floor with her hands tightly clasped together, afraid that if she allowed herself to believe too much, she would lose everything all over again. Finally, Evelyn took a deep breath, answered the call, and listened without saying a single word. As the laboratory specialist explained the results, tears immediately filled her eyes. Her shoulders began to shake. She slowly covered her mouth, unable to stop herself from crying. The young woman searched her face desperately, waiting for some sign, any sign at all. Evelyn lowered the phone with trembling hands and whispered the words she had dreamed of saying for nearly 20 years. "They're positive." For a second, the room became completely still. "There is no doubt." Her voice broke beneath the weight of emotions she had carried for almost half her life. "You are my daughter." The young woman stared at her in silence, unable to breathe, unable to think, unable to fully understand what those words truly meant. Every lonely birthday. Every unanswered question. Every night she had looked at the stars wondering whether someone, somewhere, might still be thinking about her. Every painful memory of feeling unwanted suddenly collided with a truth she had never imagined possible. She had never been abandoned because she wasn't loved. She had been missing from the arms of a mother who had searched for her every single day. Tears streamed down both of their faces as they moved toward each other without another word. There was no hesitation this time. No uncertainty. No fear. Mother and daughter embraced for the first time since the accident that had stolen 19 years from both of them. It was impossible to tell who held on tighter. Evelyn wrapped her arms around the daughter she had never stopped believing was alive, while the young woman finally experienced something she had spent her entire life imagining but had never known how to describe. It wasn't simply an embrace. It was the feeling of finally coming home. News of the extraordinary reunion spread quickly through the city. The restaurant where they had first met became a symbol of unexpected hope. Employees who had witnessed the unforgettable evening spoke about the silence that had filled the dining room when Evelyn first recognized the birthmark. Customers who had watched the encounter later admitted that they had almost judged the homeless girl before learning her story. Many confessed that the experience changed the way they looked at people they passed every day. It reminded them that no one carries their entire story on the surface, and that behind worn clothes and tired eyes may be a lifetime of pain, courage, and unanswered questions. For Evelyn, however, the reunion was never about headlines or public attention. She had not spent 19 years searching for her daughter simply to give her financial security. Money had never been the thing she believed her daughter needed most. Sitting together in her home only days after the DNA results arrived, Evelyn looked across the dinner table and realized something she had dreamed about thousands of times. For the first time in nearly 2 decades, she was no longer eating alone. There was laughter inside the house again. There were conversations that stretched late into the evening. There were photographs waiting to be taken instead of old ones waiting to be remembered. She told her daughter something she wished she could have said every single day of the past 19 years. "I can't give you back the birthdays we missed." She smiled through tears. "I can't replace the childhood that was taken from us." She gently reached across the table and held her daughter's hand. "But I can promise you this. You will never wonder again where you belong." True to her word, Evelyn didn't simply offer a place to sleep. She offered her daughter a home filled with love instead of uncertainty. She helped her continue her education, supported her through counseling to heal from years of hardship, and encouraged her to discover the dreams she had buried beneath the daily struggle to survive. More importantly, she gave her something that no amount of wealth could ever purchase. A family. A name. A future built not on fear, but on hope. The young woman never forgot Margaret, the elderly nurse who had raised her with love after believing she was protecting an orphan child. Together, she and Evelyn visited Margaret's grave to leave flowers in quiet gratitude. They both understood that although one heartbreaking mistake had separated them, another woman's compassion had also kept a helpless baby alive. Life had woven together tragedy, sacrifice, misunderstanding, and love in ways that no one could have predicted. Instead of allowing anger to define the rest of their lives, they chose forgiveness. It was the only path that allowed both past and future to exist together. Stories like this remind us that life can change in a single moment. A simple request for leftover food became the answer to a prayer whispered for 19 years. A silver locket that seemed ordinary became the thread connecting 2 lives separated by unimaginable circumstances. And a birthmark, barely noticed by anyone else, became the clue that reunited a mother and daughter against every expectation. Perhaps the greatest lesson is this. Sometimes, the person the world overlooks is carrying a story no one has taken the time to understand. Sometimes, the stranger standing quietly on the corner isn't looking for pity. They're searching for hope. And sometimes, the person you're willing to throw away is the miracle someone else has spent a lifetime praying to find. Before we end today's story, we'd love to hear your thoughts. If you were in Evelyn's position, do you think you would have recognized the clues, or would you have assumed it was nothing more than an unbelievable coincidence? Have you ever experienced an unexpected reunion or witnessed an act of kindness that completely changed someone's life? Share your story in the comments below because your experience may inspire someone else who needs hope today. And if this story touched your heart, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss another powerful story. Thank you for spending these moments with us. And if you thought this reunion was unbelievable, wait until you hear the incredible true story we have for you next. You won't want to miss it.